Meghan Markle just won something, and it's not most disliked this time. She was just named the most searched living royal on Wikipedia. But if you think that's a win for the Duchess of Sussex, you're reading the data completely wrong. In fact, being the most wikied is actually often a big red flag for a celebrity's popularity. So why does the most disliked, most unpopular royal have the highest Wikipedia traffic? There is a massive gap between who we click on and who we actually trust. And the new 2026 Royal Digital Report just proved it. You won't believe which working royal came in third, but for a completely different reason, and what metric Catherine, Princess of Wales, got number one. We've all seen the claims. Meghan Markle is the most wikied person in the wider royal family alive today. By a lot. And a lot of the press and a lot of the comments that are celebrating this as a win really just don't get it. When you layer that over her record low 19% favorability rating and being voted the most disliked public figure 4 years in a row, a much darker picture emerges of what's going on here. Today we are analyzing how the Sussex media machine creates search spikes through controversy, and why Catherine, Princess of Wales, is beating Meghan Markle in the metrics that actually matter, like Google search intent and genuine public approval. It's time to debunk this most wicked myth that the Sussex squad erroneously think is a positive for the Meg. Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelly. Welcome back to another video. Before we begin, I would like to invite you to subscribe if you have not yet already. Please do click the like button and hype this video if you would like to, and comment down below. So this recent Hiracom report has revealed that Meghan Markle clocked over 90 million global views, which seems extreme. It completely crushed William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales's numbers. But today we are going to dive into this curiosity-dislike paradox and break down why these high wiki counts actually signal something else entirely. The fact-checking, the controversy, and the lack of public trust are massive factors here, as well as a few other things that we're going to get into next that are quite surprising. And because we know that Meghan Markle is at the extreme low end of popularity, it's really rather odd, peculiar, that she has such high Wikipedia views. As you can see here, this data report goes from 2015 to 2026. And this is really, really important to recognize the window of time here, because this goes from right before Meghan Markle was introduced to us to present. So as you can see, the three most wikied people are Queen Elizabeth II, Princess Diana, and Prince Philip. And Queen Elizabeth II's global page views are nearly 436 million. That is just massive. So Queen Elizabeth's global page views of her Wikipedia page are nearly 3 times higher than the number 2 ranking of Princess Diana. That just goes to show how well loved and what a huge figure Queen Elizabeth was worldwide. Which is yet another reason why Meghan Markle's attacks on the monarchy were such a huge mistake, because Queen Elizabeth is just like one of the most profound icons and such a unifying icon because she spanned so many decades, being the longest reigning monarch, that, you know, she's just such a big deal and so well liked. This is just yet another example of that. But then when we get to ranking number 4, that is Meghan Markle's place here, the most wiki views globally of all the living royals or royal adjacent or ex-royals. Because as we can see, we have Prince Harry on here way farther down on the list. I'm sure Andrew is there somewhere. And then in third place, Princess Anne, just behind King Charles. And then we have a fairly big gap. Things start to space out quite a bit. 10 million less, we have Prince Harry, and then less than half that, we have Prince William and Catherine at just about the same amount of global page views. And before we move on to additional data sets, let's first put this into a little bit sharper context here. There were several key events that have contributed to an inflated wiki count for the Meg specifically, and one is glaringly obvious. absolutely no one knew who she was in 2015. Before she got with Harry and the time that the news came out that she was with Harry, when she forced Harry to publicly acknowledge their relationship, and then they subsequently got married, everyone and their mom was like, who the heck is Meghan Markle and why do we care? Who is this lady? Even today, with how much Meghan and Harry are out there, there is still a huge amount of the population that are like, why do we care about some lady named Meghan Markle? Who even is she? Because everybody knows she's not some big actress or musician or artist of some kind. Everybody knows that. So people are still trying to figure out who she is and why anybody cares about her at all. It really truly speaks to how unpopular and unknown she was before Harry. And royal weddings are famously massive drivers of public interest. Catherine and William's wedding broke records for how many people watched and streamed, and the internet crashed. At the time, they broke a Guinness World Record. The same thing goes for royal babies. Every time a royal baby is born, there's massive spikes to internet traffic, both on Google and Wikipedia for the parents. After George was born, for example, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, at the time Duchess of Cambridge, frequently referred to as Kate Middleton in the press, topped Google search for the entire month of June. For Meghan and Harry specifically, the Meg came out of nowhere and no one knew who she was. Their engagement and their wedding and the whole bundle of firsts as she joined the royal family, things like their first tour, for example, her first Trooping the Color, her first royal engagements, all these things were more newsworthy in the context of a new royal joining the fold. Also, it's important to keep in mind Wikipedia was created in 2001 and started to gain more mainstream traction in 2005. That's when they expanded to multiple languages and more wider subject range and things like that. So it wasn't really closer to 2010 that Wikipedia really became representative of internet traffic in a meaningful way. As compared to Google and other like news sites or things of that nature, because they didn't really fully expand and become globally popular and more mainstream until after 2005. But during this window of time, besides the wedding and this, introduction of some rando named Meghan, they had Archie, and Meghan started her sensationalism with the South Africa I'm Not Okay thing, all of her attention grabs, myriad stories about her not playing nice with others were big drivers of traffic, followed by Megxit and all the projects since then. Pretty much all of Meghan and Harry's choices, but especially Meghan's, seem to have effectively been designed to stimulate outrage, curiosity, fact-checking, double takes. What did she just say? Why did she just do that? Those sorts of things that contribute to higher than normal wiki traffic. And I'd also like to point out at this moment that Harry claims that Meghan was the most bullied person in 2018.
My wife in 2018 was the most trolled person in the world. So there was a lived experience in that.
But no, that's false. In 2018, she was actually the most Googled person because no one had ever heard of her before, which inevitably led people to her Wikipedia page to see what she's been doing before ensnaring Harry. But the really important distinction here is that there is a very big difference between Wikipedia traffic and Google search queries. Catherine, Princess of Wales, was actually named the most Googled royal right around the same time that Meghan was named most wikied royal of the living royals. And this difference in metrics correlates to differences in the use of these two sites. And this I find very interesting, relevant, and important. We actually have data that shows that when people visit Wiki, it's often associated with different intentions than Googling. And this is a very important distinction in this context. Wikipedia has been shown to have a direct connection to fact-checking behaviors, while Google search is a more general news-seeking medium. Because of the nature of these two different sites, with Wikipedia, basically you are able to get a summary of things like appearances and accomplishments and output from an individual or a group. For example, what have they actually done? Have they written books? Have they done shows? Have they put out albums? All of those things are listed there in a biographical sort of context. There's also oftentimes a significant amount of factual information on the history of the person, things like where they went to school, what years they were married to people, or when they had children. All of this stuff is on there, and it's usually fairly accurate and reliable. Now, it's usually not as reliable as finding the primary sources of things, obviously, especially in academic contexts. You can't rely on Wikipedia. It doesn't count as a reliable source. However, for casual curiosity or fact-checking for the average person who wants to go and find out a little bit more about someone or about a specific element to someone's history or things that they have said and cross-reference it or things like that, or kind of get a better idea of that person's history, Wikipedia is a great go-to source for that, and very, very popular because you can get a good picture and a good representation of a biographical, chronological history on someone. Whereas Google will come up with summaries of that person or of specific things, but primarily a Google search of a person will primarily result in a lot of news grouped by event or sort of topic, subject. So with this knowledge in mind, it really shapes how we can view Meghan's #1 Wiki compared to Catherine's #1 Google search rankings for these two people. The high Wikipedia metrics for Meghan Markle compared to other living royals are influenced by a combination of high media engagement from Meghan Markle herself, intense polarization, and the fact-checking behavior. Research indicates that Wikipedia views are driven much more by current events and controversy than general likability, for example. And controversy versus likability in metrics data shows that being the most viewed does not equate to being most liked. In fact, the two are often inversely related in the digital space. Polarization has always been a huge driver of traffic. Meghan Markle is the most wikied living royal, but her favorability ratings in the UK reached a record low by early 2026. And that dislike factor plays a big role here. On digital platforms like Ranker, Meghan has been voted the #1 most disliked celebrity for many years. This level of negative sentiment often correlates with higher Wikipedia traffic because users seek to verify Meghan's claims, read about her scandals, or get more context to her controversial behavior. And Wikipedia traffic spikes whenever a subject makes the news. Given Meghan's frequent engagement with the media by way of her social media or her frequent interviews or her frequent podcasts, statements from sources to the media just all the time, paired up with televised interviews like Oprah, the Harry and Meghan Netflix series, people go to Wikipedia to fact check this. They want to cross-reference these sensational claims that Meghan Markle makes and these controversial behaviors that Meghan and Harry have been displaying in the public view for so long, and the weird things that they say. People go to Wikipedia for the site's sourced, neutral timelines. And one of the benefits to that and why people go to Wikipedia to initiate their fact-checking is often because then there are sources cited to, like, for example, the chronological timelines on Wikipedia, and you can go and see what primary sources are backing up the Wikipedia page. So it can lead you to the primary source. And so a lot of people rely on Wikipedia for their sort of quick cross-referencing and fact-checking of Meghan and Harry's shenanigans. and bizarre claims as well. And it doesn't help that over the last few years, more and more people who have crossed paths with the Sussexes are coming out and clarifying their side of the story or what really happened or their version of events after Meghan and Harry have tried to put something out there. Case in point, the Balenciaga show. Meghan Markle and her team tried to sell this as Meghan being invited and a close personal friend of Pier Paolo, the new creative director of Balenciaga. This was false. And Pier Paolo, when he did an interview, let it be known that no, Meghan basically invited herself. That is just one example of this trend that has been gaining momentum in the last few years of people. I think it's a combination of people not wanting to be enmeshed publicly or in the public eye with Meghan and Harry. Most people don't have quite as infamous or famous names as Harry and Meghan, so they're slightly less high profile than Harry and Meghan. A lot of these people are. So they have a greater risk if they are associated or give the public the perception that they're aligned with Harry and Meghan and team Harry and Meghan. That is dicey business for a lot of people, Pier Paolo included. Balenciaga is looking for less scandal in him than they had with their past creative director, who was obviously weird. Therefore, it was important for him to clarify that no, this is not something where I'm a close friend of hers. Absolutely not. This is the truth of the matter. So it becomes imperative for a lot of people in terms of their own public image to create that boundary with Harry and Meghan, but also people are just fed up with them. People don't want to be associated with these toxic and infamous people who have reputations as whiners and liars, but they also are probably in real life annoyed with them. It seems like Harry and Meghan have a real knack for irritating people in their orbit with their demands and their pompous attitude and having somebody announce Meghan's title every time somebody comes into the room. I mean, just insanity. That's not going to come off any better in person than it does in print when we read about it. And so if you don't have a great experience with someone, then you're obviously going to be more inclined to set the record straight when they try to act like everything is peachy. We've also seen it begin a little bit with Netflix, though there's obviously Ted and Bella at Netflix are still trying to be friends with Meghan for whatever reason. But a lot of other people at Netflix are fed up and letting the truth be known. We have a video coming up about that article about the fallout with the Netflix stuff and how those contradictory claims are actually the most significant part of that article rather than the sensationalist claims in it. So be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. So with a better understanding of Google versus Wiki and this data in general, we can get a much more clear perspective on what's really happening here. And what we find is that William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, for example, feel very familiar to the public. They are also a lot more likable, and there's a lower volume of fact-checking behavior associated with them, as evidenced by their lower Wikipedia numbers at this time. Whereas the Sussexes, Meghan Markle in particular, is always changing her story, contradicting herself, and engages with the press obsessively, including her own social media. Therefore, we see a huge surge in fact-checking behaviors associated with Meghan Markle specifically, which directs people to her wiki page to sift through whatever facts can be found there and compare it to the nonsense that she said. Additionally, because she is so inauthentic, people don't find her familiar, even though she is in the media more than others. She doesn't feel familiar. We don't feel like we know Meghan for real. She comes off so inauthentic and disingenuous, and she's not likable. And since she's no longer part of the royal family, many people, like I said, are still scratching their heads wondering why anybody cares to write an article or do an interview with Meghan Markle anyway. It's important to note the media narrative imbalance at play as well. A study of press coverage found a significant disparity that fuels some of these search habits. Meghan Markle received about 43% negative press and only about 20% positive headlines, whereas Catherine received about 45% positive and only 8% negative headlines in certain markets. And negative headlines are statistically more likely to drive click-throughs to Wikipedia as readers investigate the source of the conflict, or they want to learn more about how did we get to this point where we're seeing this negative story about Meghan that seems sensationalist, or a negative take on something Meghan has done. It leads people to be curious about what happened before this, or why is the perception what it is here? Or sometimes even just wondering what even is Meghan talking about. So the key point here is that being higher up on the most wikied list is a direct predictor of unlikability, controversy, and public mistrust more than anything else, while being Googled more often is correlated strongly with things like likability, curiosity, and positive public interest. And this isn't just my inference. We have historical data to back this up that shows us from platforms like Google Trends and Wikipedia page views this correlation exactly. Search patterns for the royal family are heavily skewed by things that seem controversial, media saturation, and polarization, rather than just pure likability alone. The data highlights a curiosity-dislike paradox, where the most searched individuals are often the most unpopular. Here are just a few of these data points to back this up. Meghan Markle was the most searched person in the world in 2018 and is the most visited living royal on Wikipedia through 2026. However, her favorability in the UK hit an all-time low of 19 to 20% in early 2026, showing the Wikipedia views had a steady increase despite those few spikes of her initial joining of the royal family and things of that nature. Prince Harry, similarly, his search traffic remains high, but his net approval rating dropped significantly following the release of his memoir, Spare. The research that we have suggests that people engage in what's called motivated information seeking, which causes users to craft biased queries to confirm their existing beliefs, which drive up Wikipedia page views for controversial figures as people are looking for proof of their views or confirmation of the opinions that they have. Sometimes it's not so much bias as it's someone checking, like, why am I responding negatively to this person? Why are they rubbing me wrong? Or why do I feel like they are not being honest or inauthentic? Why am I not getting it? They're always in the news. Why do I not like this person? Or why do I find them to be polarizing or controversial? So they're looking for other opinions or other conversation or facts to sort of explain how they're reacting. But there's, of course, the other side of it of if somebody really likes Meghan and Harry or somebody really doesn't, sometimes leads people to those Wikipedia pages to sort of justify or sort of self-explain their reaction or response to those people. Thus, also, we have lower search numbers for Prince and Princess of Wales, which is attributed to their long-term public stability, where there's less need, less impulse to Google and search for the general history and the recounting of events, which leads me to my next point of information saturation. Prince William and Catherine married many, many years ago, before this window from 2015 to 2026 of this particular data set. Having been in the spotlight together for over 20 years, the public largely feels like they know William and Catherine. Their lives follow a traditional, predictable path that generates fewer sensational search spikes, and they are purposefully less controversial and more private. Because they're not putting all these breadcrumbs out into this media sphere all the time, there's just naturally a lower level of room for controversy to brew. And there's also urgency to low approval, unpopularity, controversy, lying in the public eye like Meghan and Harry do, and high approval results in much lower urgency. Catherine consistently ranks as the most popular royal with up to 78% favorability. While people like her, they have a less urgent need to know every little thing or fact check things in her life or that she says compared to frequently headline making Sussexes. Her recent health struggles definitely contributed to the Google search because people were Googling for news on her health journey and things that were going on with her and for updates on Catherine as that situation unfolded. So when we break down this data in context very clearly, it definitely doesn't paint a nice picture for Meghan Markle, which is probably why she herself never mentioned it in a humble brag of some sort that we know she loves to sneak in. As you can see here, when we compare favorability and main drivers of traffic, it becomes even more clear. So although Meghan ranked number 1 in that, Catherine Princess of Wales consistently surpasses her in nearly all metrics related to public approval, trust, and fashion influence. And because people are such fans of Catherine's beautiful and amazing fashions, she is, I say it all the time, the best fashion icon of our time. That is a huge driver of search traffic for Catherine specifically. In fact, Catherine's impact on the fashion industry and how much people search for her fashion ranked as one of the highest for public figures, beating Meghan Markle. She also ranked as one of the most trusted public figures. So while Meghan leads in that long-term Wikipedia views driven by historical interest and global fact-checking, Catherine was the most searched person on Google in 2024 and remained a top global search term throughout 2025 and so far in 2026. This reflects a higher level of active current interest in her daily life and health. So the next time you see a headline claiming Meghan is winning the digital war because of her Wikipedia numbers or anything else for that matter, remember, context is everything. 90 million views does not mean 90 million fans. It means 90 million people trying to figure out what's true, what's spin, what's scandal, and who the heck is the Meg. While Catherine and William have the luxury of being known and trusted, the Sussexes are trapped in a cycle of high engagement controversy that keeps the search bars busy, but the approval ratings low. And now I want to know what you think. Do you go onto Wikipedia because you admire a royal? Or because you're fact-checking a headline that you just saw? Drop a comment below and let's settle this interest versus approval debate. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the real data, then hit that subscribe button for more royal reality checks. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I'll see you next time. Bye!